Hi, everybody. We are live, and I have to do one swap here. Okay. I don't know why I'm doing that now. A little technical glitch going on here, even though we had the best laid plans. I'm here today with Amy Newmark, editor-in-chief and publisher of Chicken Soup for the Soul. Chicken Soup for the Soul inspires real people through real stories. These user-generated stories of hope, wellness, humor, and love have connected hundreds of millions of people around the world. That is a really big project to be on, Amy. So
It is.
give us like a first snippet into how did you even get to be part of this and then end up being the publisher and editor-in-chief?
So Chicken Soup for the Soul started in 1993 and started out as collections of stories from real people, stories that could really help readers. We've continued that legacy. We're almost 28 years old now, and my husband and I and a bunch of family and friends bought the company in 2008. So that's when I became editor-in-chief and publisher and experienced, this huge responsibility of carrying on the legacy. And it's been great. And I know it's worked because we get such passionate fan mail from our readers. And so we just continue doing this great thing of sharing storytelling from real people, which is really the best way for us to ingest wisdom and advice and culture. It's through stories from other people just like us.
Well, I could tell you, do you have the books in front of you? Can you
I
share?
do. So
Okay.
first, I happen to have them right in front of me. Whoops. I have to do this backwards thing. So here they are. They just went on sale today at Walmart. We're so pleased with these books. They're at Target also, but they're just like a passion project for me. I've been working on these books for 2 or 3 years, and I wanted to create a new, smaller format. See, these are little. They're a few dollars less than our normal books. They're not as daunting. They're not quite as thick. And inside there are graphics that are kind of like the insides of magazines, with pull quotes and then like fun little things that make them feel more like a magazine experience, because I'm realistic. We're competing for the eyeballs of these kids with social media, YouTube, and everything else. And so I wanted these books to impart all the values and advice that parents and grandparents want the kids to have, but in a very easy to consume manner so that the kids will actually pick up the books and read them.
Well, so I'm going to tell you from my perspective, and I'm clearly not your target audience as a teenager or a preteen, but I enjoyed reading the stories so much, and they're profoundly touching. Like you are accomplishing exactly what you set out to do. And one of the things that we hear often from parents is, are there any resources out there for the kids? So there's so much written out there to help parents, but much less that really can change the life of a kid who's struggling. So I'm wondering, I want to start with this first. Have you gotten any feedback from readers about how it might have impacted them, how any of these stories in these 2 books?
Yes, they tell us that this is like their secret weapon. They give these books to the kids or the grandkids, and then the kids read the stories, and they believe the lesson when it comes from a peer. When a kid says, look, this is what happened to me in 8th grade, and this is what I learned from it. Your child will pick that up and take it in. But if you say it, forget it. It doesn't matter, So this is the way that we can pass on these stories to kids and have them actually believe the source and actually react to them positively. And I actually have found that even as an adult, the stories are really helpful, because these are the kinds of life lessons that we all need to hear once in a while. These lessons about being true to your beliefs, standing up for what you think is right, even if it's embarrassing. These are all things that we have to do as adults as well. And so I feel like I've been changed through these stories, even though the stories are ostensibly for kids to be changed.
Yeah, no, I did. I was touched over and over again by the stories. We're gonna talk about a few of them, but one of your writers and contributors is here, Dina Siebert, proud to have my story published in Think Positive for Teens, and it is in fact a great resource for teens. So if you are on here right now and you're looking for that, leave the door open. That's her story. And, you know, every single one of the stories that have been chosen for these books are, they touch you somewhere deep within. And so I think that it's really a gift for our children. And do you find and do you hear that parents are reading them with their kids so that it gives them an opportunity to talk about it?
Yeah, it depends on the parents' relationship with the kids. So in some cases, the parents just have to give the book to the kids and hope they'll read it. And they're not allowed to discuss it, especially with boys, because, teenage boys, sometimes they'll just grunt at you. And I remember when my husband used to take his son to hockey games, he'd be like, it was a great day. He grunted 3 times. Girls are more likely to have the discussion. And then there are the families where they actually read the stories together and discuss them around the dinner table, which is so fabulous. And I have a feeling that when that happens, the parents are benefiting just as much as the children, because who wouldn't benefit from stories about finding true friends, and really finding the value in friends and not just going with the popular people. These are stories we all need to hear.
Yeah. And also it lets us know, because sometimes I think as a parent, we forget what it was like to be that age. And so it feels like our kid is the only one struggling with some of these issues. So for example, one of the stories, I think it's the first story in the preteen book, is about a girl who is just longingly looking at the popular table in the lunchroom. And so Amy, tell us a little bit about that story.
I love that story. So Victoria Fedden would see the girls at the popular table and wonder what would it be like to sit with them. And then one day she walked by the popular table and they started insulting her for her clothes or something about her. And then so she went over to her regular table and then just spontaneously invited this boy who was sitting alone to come and sit with them. And he turned out to be great. And then they started inviting every kid who was basically insulted by the girls at the popular table. Their table in the cafeteria turned into the happiest table in the cafeteria. And then finally, a couple of the girls who had been at the popular table, who had been, I don't know, shunned by the other members of the popular table, they slunk over to the new table, Victoria's table, and she realized this is the true popular table in the cafeteria because we're nice to people and we're friendly, and this is where people can be happy. And I thought that was such a great message because we've all been through that. Everybody had experience with the popular table. And the funny thing is, even the girls at the popular table will tell you later, oh, I was unhappy. I was insecure. I was always worried about everything. Even those girls aren't really happy.
And the power that Victoria has in that moment when she decides to be the leader in this, forming this new, happy, kind place, like it had 2 parts to it that I was so touched by.
Yeah, I mean, there's something so empowering about doing the right thing and standing up for what you believe and making true friends. Like there was this girl, Alexis Streb, and she stood up for what she believed in. And her story, I just keep talking about her story because I was one of those loudmouths who would, speak up for what she believed in and then get in trouble with the teacher. But Alexis has a little brother on the autism spectrum, and she was at band practice one day, and the band teacher said, guys, you're playing like the kids on the short bus, which was so insulting because the short bus was for the special needs kids. And Alexis was shocked, and she raised her hand and she said, you can't make fun of the kids on the short bus. They're just like the rest of us. And the teacher was really embarrassed and apologized. And Alexis was just sitting there, embarrassed. She was a new kid at that school. But then she realized, you know what? No one else spoke up except me, and I did the right thing. And she could feel proud of herself and feel like she was true to herself. And I thought, what a great lesson for kids and really to the parents too.
I felt like when she was trying to decide whether she should say something or not, because she had encountered other experiences where she'd been silent and felt really terrible about it. And in that moment, she actually did it with an adult, which was even braver. So you're like rooting for her. It's just so empowering, that moment when she takes charge. And so those are a lot of the stories. One more that I loved was like this girl becomes friends with another girl who I think has a very big house, right? Learning to Love My Messy Life. And this girl has a very big, fat, loud, messy family and with a lot of kids.
Yeah, so that's part of our whole focus on gratitude and counting your blessings and valuing what you have instead of looking at what other people have, and also treasuring your own family. And so this girl who lived in this big empty house had a nanny and a housekeeper and parents who were never home. And she was actually very lonely, even though she was surrounded by opulence. And when she went to her friend's house, and her friend's house was crowded and there were too many kids and not enough rooms and it was noisy, well, the girl from the fancy house was so much happier in the messy, crowded house. And that taught her friend that she should really value her messy, noisy family, because that was where the real joy was.
And I think she wanted to like she said, when I have my own family, I want it to be like yours, right? Like the girl in the big empty house.
That
Yeah.
you just never know what's going on in somebody's mind. Like, I have a story in one of these books about my friend who was the most popular girl in 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade. I mean, if she had a crush on a boy, well, 100 girls had a crush on that boy, but that boy would like her. And if she wore something, everyone else would wear the same thing. Like, I bought a pair of shoes one time and she loved my shoes, and she went out the next day and bought the same shoes, but in dark blue, and mine were black. Do you know every other girl in her 6th grade class went out and bought those shoes, but in blue, not black? And I was like, wait, I started this, but now I have the uncool color because blue is the cool color. And she said to me, I tried to get them in black, but they didn't have them in black, so I settled on blue. Well, anyway, I wrote that story, and I had lost touch with my friend for decades, and then via the internet found her across the country, and we started, chatting again. And she had no idea that she was the most popular kid in our grade. She said, I was always so insecure and I felt so uncomfortable and I was afraid to talk to boys. And I said, but you liked the hottest boy in the class and he liked you back and you looked totally comfortable with him. And everybody copied everything you did. And she had absolutely no idea. And it just shows you that even a girl who seems to have everything doesn't know she has everything and actually feels just as insecure as everybody else.
So comforting. So shocking and comforting at the same time. Okay, the last story I want to talk about, because I just love what this mom did. So it's a story about a girl whose very close friend loses his father and how the mom handles that situation.
Yeah, and this is a great lesson for mothers too, to help your kids learn some of the etiquette and some of the ways that you act more adult. So this girl was only in 9th grade, and when her classmate's father died, a father she had never met, she didn't think it would be appropriate to go to the funeral. And her mother explained to her, no, the funeral is for the living. You go to show that you care for your friend. And so, being a 9th grader, she was terrified, but she went, she clung to her mother, was right by her side. And they didn't bring flowers, they didn't bring food, they didn't do anything except be there. And her friend appreciated so much that she showed up, and her mother did the right thing by forcing her to go. And that life lesson stuck with this girl. And she learned to always reach out to somebody when there's a death or an illness or something where you're not sure which way to go. Should I leave them alone or should I lean in? She learned that leaning in is always the right thing to do. So, what a great lesson that her mother forced her to do. And it was probably tough for the mother to do it, but she did it, and she changed her daughter for life.
And that boy was so grateful to have a friend there, because it's so hard for kids to do that. It was just all around such a great lesson to read about. So what prompted you to do these 2 positive thinking books right now?
Well, the reason I did them was we've done great with our books about positive thinking that are for adults. And we also did a book for younger kids called Think Positive for Kids. And that one did really well. And I thought, why am I not doing this for preteens and teens? A group that bought, millions and millions of copies of our books over the last, 25 years. And so I really wanted to get the most important values into these books. So that's why we have being true to yourself, picking true friends, doing the right thing even when it's hard, making effort even when it's hard, treasuring your family, counting your blessings. So important for kids, right? So I wanted to encompass all of these positive thinking values into these books. And we had some great stories to choose from. And so I'm just so super excited. And we actually waited 2 years for the right time to put the books out. And I can't think of a better time than during the pandemic when kids are at home have some downtime to read and really need a lot of the emotional support that are in these pages.
Yeah, very uplifting for anybody who wants to read it. Parents should absolutely share it with their kids. But now that takes us to the next question, which is there's often situations where the suggestion from the parent is the kiss of death. So do you have any recommendations for how a parent could get their kid to read the book?
Well, if it's a boy, I'd say leave it in the bathroom, right? That's what I do with husbands, right? I always say to women, leave it in the bathroom for your husband. I think that works with boys as well. I think for a girl, just leave it on the night table, see what happens. I mean, that's what I used to do with my kids. You just kind of stick it there, and then if you don't force them, they'll just pick it up. And the nice thing is the stories are short, 2 or 3 pages. So it's a nice 5 or 10-minute bite of advice, and then they can go back to looking at Instagram, but at least you'll get it in a little bite-sized pieces for them.
Can you tell us a little bit about what the criteria are for being published in Chicken Soup for the Soul series? Like Dina Haynes told us she got into it, and it seems like such a big accomplishment to do that. So for people who are listening, any tips?
Really share your truth and your milestone moments, and let us inside, share intimacy with us, basically. Let us get inside your head and feel what you were feeling. And if you have a story that's really embarrassing and you want to use a pen name, we let people use a pen name under those circumstances. But most people end up feeling very proud that they have so unselfishly shared a milestone moment, an epiphany, a turning point in their lives, this incredible lesson, and they're like,
Oops. I lost her. Let's hope she's going to get back on.
Share this with I'm going to share this with all your readers. Look at that. This happened again. I think the camera went off again, right?
Yeah, let's get you back on, and then we'll go back and answer that question again.
Okay. I don't know how to get my camera back on again.
Well, you know what you can do is if you want to sign off and sign back on, that might work.
Okay, I'll be right back.
Okay, in the meantime, I'm going to tell everybody a story. If anybody has anything they want to share in the comments, we'd love to hear that now. But Jen Pro, who works at Your Teen, she's an amazing editor. Her daughter went through this huge phase of reading all of the Chicken Soup for the Soul books. She got really hooked, and somehow it just really touched her as a teenager. So if you're thinking about it right now, that is a testimonial from a mom of a teenager whose kid really felt like all of the different stories really resonated with her and empowered her. So run right now. After this is over, can you get it online at those places?
Oh my gosh, yes. So
yeah.
You can get Think Positive for Preteens and Think Positive for Teens from Amazon, from Walmart.com, Target.com. And you'll find Think Positive for Preteens at Walmart and at Target. Think Positive for Teens isn't going to hit the shelves until later, but you can buy it online now. So you can have both of them for holiday giving.
Fantastic. And we actually are having a raffle for 5 of each of those copies. And I'll put the link into the comments here so you can come back later and put your name in there. Did you have teens, like what's the process? Well, let's finish the question that we lost you on, which is someone is listening right now and saying, I have a really good story to tell. How do I, what's the best way to craft that? How do I submit it?
Okay, so if you go to chickensoup.com and you click on Submit Your Story, you will see our writing guidelines, and you'll also see we're actually collecting stories for a book that's going to come out, 2 books that are going to come out next year. We're going to relaunch our classic Chicken Soup for the Preteen Soul and Chicken Soup for the Teenage Soul, and we're going to put new stories in those books to combine with the old stories. We're making anniversary editions for the 25th anniversary of Teenage Soul and the 20th anniversary of Preteen Soul. We're looking for writers under 35 to contribute to those. So if you have teens in your family, you can also tell them about this writing opportunity. We usually get thousands of submissions for a book, but people get in anyway, sometimes even on the first try. It's really about sharing that compelling personal story where you take us inside your head and let us feel what you were feeling and let us feel the same change that you felt. And what a great way for people to learn those hard lessons without having to go through the hard experiences.
What's the process on your end? So you get thousands of submissions. Are you reading all of them, and how many of you are reading them, and what's your rubric?
So we read every submission, and it's read by at least one person. Often they're read by two people. They're graded. I usually will see several hundred finalists for each book of 101 stories, and I'll choose the final 101. Then what we'll do is we'll go through and we'll edit them. Sometimes it's a light edit, sometimes it's a very serious edit. We then go back to the writers of the stories and we have them approve 100% of the edits that we have made. So they're very much a part of the process. And then once they are published by us, we not only pay them a really good rate for a freelancer, but we also give them 10 free copies of the book that they're in. And then we let them buy books at half price from us going forward so they can do their own book signings. And we even let them buy books at 2/3 off list price if they want to sell the books to raise money for a nonprofit, a school, a church, a synagogue. And so we really make them part of the Chicken Soup for the Soul family.
That's awesome. I love everything about that. So I saw a quote on your Facebook page that I just wanted to share because your Facebook page is very inspiring also. It is not happiness that makes us grateful. It's gratefulness that makes us happy. And it's such a beautiful quote, and it so aligns with all of the work you're doing. So if you have one, leave us with something inspiring before the holiday season.
All right, I have a favorite quote, and it's what it was. Now I'm trying to remember the exact thing. It's about ships are not made to sit in the harbor; they're made to sail. But I'm not getting it right. But it's really about stepping outside your comfort zone, which is something we talk about in these books also. That you should, try that new sport, try that new food, try that new thing, because that's what keeps life dynamic and interesting. And even kids need to not get stuck in a rut. Even kids need to step outside their comfort zones and try new, safe, parent-approved things.
And one of them could be submitting an article.
Oh, totally. I mean, what's the harm? Nobody knows you submitted it. Nobody knows if it doesn't get in, but if it does get in, oh my gosh, we even assign our writers publicists. So if you are published by us, you get a publicist who contacts you and sends a press release to your local newspaper and tries to get you into your local newspaper.
All a wonderful story. Thank you so much for what you do. Thank you for bringing me into it. I loved reading both books. And everybody go get it and enjoy it and have a wonderful holiday season.
Thanks so much, Susan.